Okay, hey everyone. Um, if you can't hear me, just go ahead and I was having some mic issues earlier. So if you can't hear me, just go ahead and let me know in the chat, and I'll see what I can do about that. But my name is Brad Lusk, and today I'm going to show you how to make a vegan recipe. We're going to make some curry using some ingredients that I have laid out for you all here. And so I also have the food mic, the Zoom mic, so I can kind of take the mic with me and show you some of the stuff, and you can get up close to it. Before I get into all the ingredients, though, I should mention this is being brought to you by a group of individuals within a group called Citizens Climate Lobby. We are within that. We are called Citizens Climate Classes. And basically, our focus is to share some fun ways that you all can make, we all, I should say, me too, can make more sustainable choices in our day-to-day lives in terms of cooking and cleaning around the house, or even cleaning ourselves and taking care of our hair. And also, some cool things you do to upcycle materials, stuff like that. You can follow us across most of the social media platforms, so Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, at Climate Classes. At Climate Classes is our hashtag, or our Twitter tag, I should say, or our at Climate Classes tag. So anyway, with that, I'll also throw out the disclaimer. So this is just like a cool recipe that I've developed over the course of a few years, and it's basically just me kind of spitballing some of my favorite foods, throwing them in pot, frying them up, putting them with some coconut milk and some of my favorite spices. And I thought it tasted good. I've gotten confirmation from other people that it tastes good. And so with that being the case, this is by no means like an all-inclusive or end-all be-all recipe. So, you can taste this or flavor this how you like. If you don't want to put in so much of a spice, you don't have to, etc. So with that disclaimer, this is not meant to be a complete recipe, and all the risks associated with operating a stove and blah blah blah. That's up to you. I'm sure you can handle it, but just getting that out of the way. So with that, I'm going to show you some of the ingredients that I'll be using today in this recipe. I put most of these ingredients, or all of these ingredients, in the description on YouTube. But once again, I tend to like things a little spicier. According to my preferences, the recipe I'm making today is actually a little less spicy than I usually would. But you'll see that I'm putting quite a few different peppers in there. And I'm also going to show you some spice options that you have in terms of, chili powder or cayenne pepper or stuff like that you can add in and kind of spice it to flavor and how kind of spicy you like it. And so here I have some of the vegetables that I'll be using. Sorry if the mic's a little shaky. Okay, there's a good angle. So we're going to be using broccoli, a cubano pepper, a poblano pepper. I also have a jalapeno pepper that I've chopped up, but I didn't have an extra one not chopped up. You can also notice I'm using only half the poblano. So I've chopped up a lot of stuff in advance. I'm going to be using a yellow capsicum or a yellow bell pepper, a red bell pepper, some mushrooms here, about a medium-sized white onion, and then 2 sliced up carrots. So if you want to go ahead and get started on chopping that up, if we could take the, and then also 12 ounces of extra firm tofu. So over here, I've already chopped up a lot of those vegetables. So you can go ahead and get started doing that. I've peeled my carrots. I also used some kale. I'm going to put some kale in there. So I just kind of tore some of the leaves off of the kale stems. And then you can see here I have my jalapeno pepper, cubano, poblano, yellow, and red bell pepper. You can chop them however you like. Some people like diced up small, kind of like what I've done with the cubano. Some people like kind of these longer pieces, like what I've done with the bell pepper. It's totally up to you. Some of the seasonings that we're going to be using. So peanut butter is going to be essential. We're also going to be using coconut milk, which I'll get out of the refrigerator in just a minute, because I have the kind of coconut milk that's refrigerated. You might have a can. You might have a can of coconut milk. That's fine too. Generally I would buy the coconut milk in cans, particularly back in Arizona when I had access to really amazing Asian markets. But here at the grocery store I have to get the carton of coconut milk. But honestly, like the flavor is pretty similar, so either one will work. I'm also going to be using some turmeric, some chili powder, paprika, and I apologize to you if this all looks mirrored for some reason. That's what it looks like on my computer. Black pepper, cayenne pepper again. So the cayenne pepper, the chili powder, once again, these are going to be highly optional depending on how spicy you want it. Some cumin seeds, some garam masala, some cardamon, it's optional to you. Some of you have like a favorite curry powder or curry seasoning that you like to use when you make curry. So if you want to add that in and give it that kind of flavor that you're used to, you can. And then we have, this is actually not the curry powder that it says it is. This is a different curry powder that I got at an Asian market back in Mesa, Arizona before I moved. That's particularly spicy and I really like it, but I can't remember the name. Apologize for that. And then some whole cloves. I want to use these whole cloves for when I make my rice. So today I'm using white rice. So in typical fashion, as some of you may know me, I also have a nonprofit organization called Science to Earth, and I always like to put a little science spin on everything I do. And so if you look down in the description on YouTube, you can see some information about arsenic in rice and also lead and turmeric. So these are kind of like, consuming rice and turmeric are two ways to possibly be exposed to heavy metals. And so what I've done is I put some peer-reviewed papers in there and some stuff from the FDA and some stuff from an NGO in India that basically gives you some tips and tricks on how to reduce your exposure to inorganic arsenic and lead from consuming rice and turmeric. So some of the tips I can give you off the top of my head are when you're getting rice, in terms of your exposure to arsenic, organic and inorganic rice are the same. There's no difference. Generally, white rice has lower levels. And if you use lower levels of inorganic arsenic as compared to like brown rice, but basmati and jasmine rice have the lowest levels. And also use excess water when you're making your rice, and then just drain that water out when you're done, because what that water will do is it'll actually contain some of that arsenic, and then you can, dump it down the drain so you're not consuming as much of it. When it comes to turmeric, so there's a problem with some companies, and it's a particular issue in turmeric that's purchased in Bangladesh, where they add lead chromate because it has a color, a very vibrant color that makes it look more appealing. So generally, turmeric purchased in the United States has some of the lowest levels of lead compared to other places. So once again, if you're interested in reading about any of that, I put all of the information down, including some of the health effects of exposure. I put all that down in the description. But once again, I'm aware of all those things. I still eat it, so there are ways to do it safely. So just, look into that and, find ways to consume your product safely. So next thing I want to do is get the rice started, because the rice, takes the most amount of time, I think, out of all the things we're going to do. So this is generally a recipe where I come home from work and I'm kind of tired from, working all day. And this is something that I can put together in, it takes me maybe 30 minutes to 45 minutes, from rice starting, chopping up all the vegetables, frying them, putting the, making the whole curry, and then consumption starts around 45 minutes later. So not too bad, I don't think. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rinse the rice. Then I'm going to add, put it into my rice cooker. I highly suggest you get a rice cooker, although I know you can make it on the stovetop. The rice cooker just makes it so easy. I literally push a button and then don't have to worry about it, and then it's done. So I'll go ahead and do that. I'll try to bring the camera over as much as I can to the sink here. And I'll explain to you why you're looking at a Merck and a biochemistry textbook here in a minute. As a matter of fact, maybe I'll just explain that now, because this is probably a good time for you to start doing this. So you're gonna take your extra firm tofu, and you're going to go ahead and you're going to cut open. So here I've already done this. I cut open the package. I drained that liquid out. So I dumped the liquid that was in the tofu out into the drain. And then I took the tofu, and now we'll come over to these textbooks. I took the tofu, and what I did was I put down a absorbent cloth on the bottom. So, you know, for some of you, this may be tissue paper, maybe you have towels around, or maybe, you know, in a video we're going to post soon, where one of the other members of Citizens Climate classes, Elena, has made a video on how you can turn old t-shirts into rags or washcloths. So maybe even an old t-shirt that you can use, something you don't care about. But essentially what's going to happen is these two towels are going to absorb all that moisture. And you're using these textbooks to kind of like press all the moisture out, right? So generally, you know, if I do this, if I leave it there for, you know, 15, 20 minutes, it's usually enough. I've already there's so much moisture in the tofu that generally you can wring out the towel. So I'll see, I did that earlier. I'll see if I was able to extract enough moisture to be able to wring the towels out again. Let's see. Yeah, it looks like, yeah, you can kind of see there. So what that's going to do, it's going to give your tofu kind of it's going to flatten it out quite a bit, and it's going to give it more of like a rough texture. Now, the reason that I'm using the extra firm as opposed to like a silken tofu or a soft tofu is that this extra firm is, you know, when I cut this up and I go to fry it, it's going to help it stick together, you know, like some other protein or maybe an animal-based protein would. It's going to stick together. It's going to give you kind of like almost like a tofu steak like consistency. And the way we're going to fry it, it's going to make that outside nice and crispy, and the inside, you know, soft but relatively, because it's the extra firm. And so I just prefer the feel of extra firm when making this particular curry recipe. If I was going to do something like, you know, try to make vegan scrambled eggs or something, I might use a softer tofu. But generally, when I'm using tofu for like a protein, like meat kind of type deal, I go for the extra firm. Once again, that's kind of your preference, but that's what I'll be using today. Now I'm going to go ahead and start getting the rice cooking. So I have like just a simple strainer here, and that's all you're really going to need. And then, you know, how much rice you want to make is up to you. I know we're kind of in quarantine now, so this will probably be just for you. So you don't need to go crazy. You're not like feeding a village. But if you're like me, I love leftovers. Some people like really hate leftovers. I love leftovers because, you know, today I have to cook, and tomorrow all I have to do is reheat, and I have my meal ready to go. So for like a 45-minute investment, I get to eat for, you know, 2 or 3 days. And honestly, like making this rice, whether I make rice for today only or whether I make rice for the next 3 days, the difference in time is not that much. So I might as well just utilize my time the most efficiently by cooking the most rice I can at a single time. So I'll show you about how much liquid I'm putting in here, but I'm putting in a lot of excess liquid here. Okay, so something like that. Now, the cool thing about having this rice cooker is that it does a pretty good job at cooking the rice to a fairly good consistency. I also noticed when I use excess liquid, the rice comes out like softer, you know, kind of like that sticky. And some people don't like that. I really like that, so I'm a huge fan. A kind of cool little tip you can do when you're making rice. So you could do this with cloves. You can also add bay leaves. Sometimes I add bay leaves when I'm making my rice. But just adding a few cloves whole cloves will give it a kind of like spicy flavor kick to it. So once again, if you're a fan of like that clove flavor, I would suggest doing it. Oh, look at that, I'm almost out. So I'll just add maybe, how many cloves are even here? It looks like around 10. So I'll just add 10. I'm just going to add them right into the rice, just like that. Okay. Then I'll stick on my lid. I'll plug it in, and then I'll just okay, go ahead and get cooking. Now, what I'll do with this, it's kind of coincidence that I ran out of cloves. What I'll do with this is I will actually order whole cloves in bulk, and I'll reuse this container. So I'm not even sure if this is McCormick cloves that are in here, honestly, probably not. So I haven't really purchased a lot of McCormick products for several years because I generally try to go on Amazon and look for, or the internet and try to look for, cloves from different sources and test new flavors, stuff like that. But I'll just keep using this same container over and over and over again. And it's a cool way to kind of reduce your plastic consumption in that way. Okay, so my rice is cooking, and I am going to, sometimes my rice cooker overflows just a little bit. So I'm going to put this onto a plate. That way I don't have a big mess later. Okay, cool. So now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to start cooking up our vegetables. And so, I chopped up a bunch in advance. If you're still furiously chopping, it's okay. I don't expect you to have it all chopped yet. And you could just start cooking as you chop. So what I have here is a big wok pan. If you don't have a big wok pan, I mean, this thing is like, hefty. This thing could be a murder weapon, really. So I like to use these big wok pans. If you have just a more conventional pan like this, I use that as well sometimes. Either will work. So, it's not like you need a big wok for this recipe to work effectively. I just like to use the wok. I think it's kind of cool, and it also gives me a ton of extra space. I want to add in a ton of vegetables, which I usually do because I love my stuff to be super nutrient dense. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're just going to start heating that up, and we're going to put, I would say usually put the oil in first before you turn it on, but I kind of already did that faux pas. So I'll just add the oil in quickly before it gets really hot. But what I'm going to start with now is a peanut oil, and I generally want to use, let's see if I can, there we go. I generally want to use a peanut oil for the frying kind of as a base, because the peanut oil will not burn off as quickly as, say, something like coconut oil will, especially if you have a really kind of pure coconut oil, or a coconut oil that is 100% coconut oil. It's going to burn off a lot quicker than your peanut oil. And so what I'm doing here is I'm adding some peanut oil, and then what I'll do is I'll add a little bit of coconut oil on top of that to kind of flavor. I have, what's it called? I'm trying to remember the terminology they use, pressed versus unpressed or something like that. But anyway, so the coconut oil that I have, unrefined, yeah, unrefined. So I have unrefined coconut oil. What does that mean? Basically, the more refined your oil is, the less flavor it's going to have. For example, like a vegetable oil or a peanut oil, they're generally very refined, and so they don't have as much flavor because they don't have much of those other flavors or impurities, if you will. So you can think about an oil like olive oil. Olive oil is very flavorful. Olive oil is relatively unrefined, and that's why you get all those flavors in there, because it has all of those olive impurities. So if you have a coconut oil that's unrefined, it's going to taste a little bit more like coconut than if you have one that's more refined. And so the reason I'm going to use the unrefined, and I'm going to add a little bit in there, it's just because I'm going to add some coconut flavor to the mix. So I'm going to set this down because my coconut oil container is huge and it's hard to handle the camera and the container at the same time. I don't even know if I've used this one yet, honestly. It doesn't look like I have. Look, it's brand new. Let me see. There. If all else fails, stab it with a chopstick. Okay. There we go. Okay, that's pretty good. So I'll just put a little dabble in there. Okay, that's fine. That should be enough. Okay. The next thing I like to do, and don't worry, those of you who are anticipating the truffle, that's going to happen. The truffle oil is going to happen. As a matter of fact, I have it sitting right here. We're actually going to use this truffle oil when we fry our tofu. And what we're going to do, and I'll show you that in just a second, is we're going to actually cut this oil with some of the peanut oil, just because a lot of the truffle oil goes a long way. And for me, the truffle flavor is very strong, and it can be a little overwhelming if you add too much. So if you hadn't used truffle oil before when you're cooking, I would encourage you to err on the side of caution and maybe use less than you think is necessary. And then you can kind of taste some of the tofu that's coming out and adjust how much you have in there by then. Because what's going to happen when we fry the tofu is it's actually going to absorb the oil. And so you actually have to add more oil as you're frying. And so then you can decide, do I want to add more or less of the truffle oil? Also use this sparingly, because I think this bottle was like 25 bucks. So, you know, you don't want to burn money, but you do want it to taste good as well. Okay. So the next thing I usually do, and I always go with, some people like the flavor of cumin. But some people add cumin powder. I always do the cumin seeds. I much prefer the flavor of cumin seeds, but once again, that's just your personal preference. And so generally what I do is I'll add the cumin seeds in first. And what'll happen is they'll fry up a little bit in the oil, and that'll help bring out some of the flavor. Once again, I'm just kind of like throwing a bunch in there because I really like the flavor of it, but we're also going to have a lot of, vegetables and tofu that's in there. And so there's going to be plenty of materials, plenty of vegetables and stuff to kind of have that flavor dispersed throughout. So now that I put those in there, you can already see kind of the oil starting to fry up here. That kind of like white that you see, that's from the coconut oil. And so what's going to happen is those cumin seeds, you can mix them around a little bit. They're going to get just a little bit cooked, just a little bit fried. That's really going to bring out some of that flavor. When you're eating the cumin seeds too, it's going to add a little bit of crunch that I like. That wouldn't be there if you were using maybe like the cumin powder. You can also, if you want that really fresh cumin powder, you could buy cumin seeds and then grind them up before into cumin powder and then add that as well. So there's just all different possibilities. So I'm going to go ahead and set the camera down here again and try to give you a good angle of the stove. And what I'm going to do is just I'm going to take all the stuff I chopped up earlier, and I'm just going to throw it all in there. Okay. So we don't got to be super fancy about it. You can hear some popping. So what that is I like the spice. So in all of my peppers, and I'll show you in just a minute, all the peppers that I use, I keep the seeds. I keep the seeds that are in the peppers in the vegetables. And so you can kind of see some of the seeds on the top here, like over here. And so I keep those seeds in there because they add some spice. But what happens is, as soon as those peppers hit the oil, as soon as those pepper seeds hit the oil, they kind of pop almost like popcorn kernels. And that's fine. If you're putting just the seeds in, just the pepper seeds in and nothing else, you might want to stand back, because what happens when they pop is they'll fly out at you, and I've had that happen, and it's kind of crazy. The reason I didn't chop up my onion first is I want to show you a little trick for chopping up onions. So I'm going to set the camera there. I'm going to get my cutting board out. And I'll show you this little pro tip for chopping up onions. And I know I'm kind of like on the spot here and in front of everyone, so I'll probably mess it up. But hey, maybe I'll get an E for effort. And so generally what I do is I'll cut it, you know, straight down, crossed. But I'm kind of like tilting the knife a little so it's not going all the way down. And so like if I pick this onion up, you could see how it's still kind of together. Okay, I don't want to cut quite all the way through the onion because I want it to hold together. Then I want to turn it 90 degrees and I want to cut straight down again. So far, so good. Okay, so now you have this onion that's kind of cut into cubes, but it's still held together because you haven't quite cut all the way through it, right? Then we're just going to cut down this way. And we're going to have an onion. Ooh, try not to cut my hand off. We're going to have an onion that's fairly nicely cubed here. When you get to the bottom part, it gets a little tougher, obviously, because it's not quite chopped all the way through because that was part of our method. But now you can see, I'll give you kind of an aerial view of this here. But now what we've done is, bam, we have a pretty easily diced onion, chopped onion, with minimal effort, right? Which when you come home from work, or in this case, I guess kind of work is home for now. But when you decide to take a break from staring at your screen and you want to go cook, but you're hungry like right now because you've had meetings all day, and you've been typing memos for the last like 4 months of your life, it's very easy and quick to just chop up this onion with minimal effort so that you can just feed yourself and relax. So now we'll throw the onion in. Okay. And I'll just kind of like stir this around. And so you might be wondering, like, you know, how much should I cook? How long should I cook this for? How much should I cook it? So I like, for example, I like it when my broccoli is like black. I like it when my broccoli is pretty much burnt. So I will cook this for a long time. And the way I see it is, you know, the more I cook this and kind of the softer these vegetables get, like, I think the better they are. Like I like onions and I like bell peppers that are really, really cooked. Another thing we can do to help this cook faster is I'm going to take a lid. This is obviously not a lid that was made for this wok plate. It doesn't matter. Just kind of get any lid that'll fit over it and just kind of set it over the top. Set it over the top like that. Okay. So that'll help it just kind of trap the heat. It's not airtight, which is good. You don't have to worry about a lot of pressure building up. And so you can just come back and check in on it every once in a while. Oh, I almost forgot the mushrooms. So now when I go to add the mushrooms, you could chop them up. Sometimes I try to get really small mushrooms, like, I don't know, maybe ones like this or smaller. And I'll just try to put the whole mushrooms in. But since I got like this mixed kind of consistency or size of mushrooms, what I'll do is I'll just kind of crumble them like this. You know, you don't have to be too fancy with it. And I think this does a great job of just, you know, you add the mushrooms and you don't really have to worry about cutting it or spending time or worrying about it. Some people are really into kind of like how their food looks. I can kind of understand that, but frankly, I'm just going to like chew this as soon as it gets into my mouth and then digest it. And so it doesn't really matter to me if it's like a perfect kind of cut, you know, so you're going to end up getting chunks of mushroom that look like that. Okay. So if you're like really into food aesthetics and stuff, and I totally get that and I understand that, maybe not use this method. But if you're just hungry and you want to eat, you know, go for it. Okay, so now I have all these vegetables in there and they're kind of frying up. And what I'll do is when they cook a little bit more, I'll start adding in the spices. In the meantime, let's move over to the tofu. So I'm going to kind of get all this stuff out of my way real quick. Okay, so let's bring on the tofu. Okay, so now what I'll do with the tofu is like really kind of simple. I like to do just straight lines across, and then you'll get maybe out of this like you'll get like 20 slivers of tofu or something like that, which will be great for frying up. Once again, this is going to be kind of like cooking any other kind of protein. If you want thicker cuts, then do thicker cuts. If you want thinner cuts, do thinner cuts. I'm going to do kind of thinner cuts. I think it's kind of easier to cook up that way consistently. But if you want to do thicker cuts and kind of play around with your cooking heat and method and all that stuff, then go for it. And definitely, if you discover anything that tastes amazing or that blows your mind, put it in the YouTube chat later. Okay, I'm seeing now. Thanks for the background chemistry ingredients. Where did you buy the whole cloves in bulk? Okay, I've just remembered that there's some questions that can show up. Okay, so you can get the whole cloves in bulk. Generally, they'll have it at ethnic markets. I've seen it. Since I moved to DC, I haven't really found it in bulk anywhere. So in terms of around the city, I would try looking on Whole Foods or some other sites that sell spices. And when I say Whole Foods, I mean Amazon, which, I mean, what's the difference anymore? But I would look on there. That's what I have. I have a lot of pouches of food that I've purchased in bulk. And so, you can imagine if you buy one pouch that has 16 ounces of this, that's going to, use a lot less plastic than buying, like 30 of these for 16 ounces. So I would suggest looking online. Okay. Or another good place to look would be like a local Asian supermarket. For those in the DC area, I know there's some that are close in kind of Virginia that I've been into. So if you have a car or something like that, it's a lot easier to get there. So yeah, you should go check that out. As long as they're open now, I don't know, with kind of the quarantine stuff going on. Okay, so here's my first cut. You can kind of see the thickness there. Also, it's not perfect, but what is? Okay, so I'm just going to go through with these kind of cuts. Let's see if we have other questions. Oh, Arizona has been thanked for teaching me to like spice. Yes, Arizona, thank you. I grew up getting a lot of vegetables at a local swap meet we had, and people would literally bring up produce straight freshly grown from Mexico. And I remember eating a ton of mangoes that were like super cheap, and getting avocados for like a quarter. Those are the days. But they would also bring up fresh peppers, and maybe I don't do it so much now because of the outbreak, but you can definitely tell whether a pepper is going to be good or bad on how it smells, how spicy it's going to be. You kind of get this refined nose for it. Okay. So here we have, what do we have? 5 times 3 plus 1. So we have 16 pieces here that we have. And so we're going to fry up these 16 pieces. And we'll start doing that now. First thing I want to do is check in on my vegetables, see how they're doing. Okay, so you can see they're steaming. Another thing that's going to happen, ooh, I'm kind of getting that coconut smell from the coconut oil. It's pretty awesome. Okay, so you can see the vegetables are starting to get kind of like there's a lot of moisture going on. Now that's, a combination of the steam staying in there, and like the vegetables have a lot of liquid in them. So naturally, as they cook, it's going to get more, there's going to be more moisture in here. And it's kind of cool because that steam and that water that's kind of coming out will help it cook more. Anyway, so yeah, it's looking pretty good here. I'll go ahead and just put that back on. Okay, next thing I want to do, I'm going to go ahead and fry. And once again, I'm not using any kind of fancy fryer or going crazy. I'm just going to use a kind of a conventional pan that you could get. I think I got this pan at a Goodwill like 10 years ago, so you don't have to use anything fancy. So I'm just going to turn it on. I'll turn it on, kind of in the higher range. So this goes up to 6, whatever. It's from a unit of 1 to 6. I don't know what those units are related to, but I'll put it on kind of a highish setting. And then I'm going to add, once again, I'm going to add a layer of peanut oil. If you have vegetable oil or whatever, that's fine too. And then I'm going to add in a little bit of the truffle oil to give it some of that truffle flavor. Okay. There's kind of what I want to do is just add enough to kind of cover the pan here. Okay. Then I want to come over here and I want to get my truffle oil. You can see the little truffle in there. Give it a quick smell. That is very pungent. Okay, so how much of this do I want to add? I just want to add, let me see. It's going to add, that should be good. That's about it. So that was maybe like a few teaspoons or something like that. I don't know. A dash, whatever a dash is. Anyway, okay. So I have that on a kind of a high heat, so it should start to heat up. And once I start to see some kind of like bubbles forming in there or something, or along those lines, when they start to see a little bit of bubbles, there's no or something about it. Once they start to see a little bit of bubbles, then I'll put the tofu in there, and hopefully we'll see that tofu frying up really quickly. So while that's heating up, I'll go ahead and I'll do the same thing. I'll put the lid on that, but generally what I do when I have a lid that is made for a pan and fits it really well, I'll put the lid on just like this. See how it's kind of sideways like that? And what that'll do is, if there is smoke that starts to come out from the oil being too hot and starting to cook off, it'll be able to release a little easier that way. I don't think that there would ever be a major problem of, say, like the glass exploding or something like that, but I just do it anyway. Okay, so let's look over at our vegetables here. And I think they're really coming along nicely. I usually judge it by how easily I can go through a thing of broccoli. You see that? Maybe let me pick one out here. So if I could just kind of like take this wood thing and push straight through, then I know it's starting to get to a place where I think it'll taste good. Once again, the broccoli is not quite charred yet. Usually, sometimes what I'll do is I'll put the broccoli in first and make sure that gets that char, and then I'll add it to everything else. But either way, it's fine. So now what we can do is look back over here, and we can see. I'll put the lid back on the vegetable, but we can see the kind of oil is starting to bubble. So the oil is getting hot. So now, let me see the best way to show you this. Let me try to angle it. Okay. I'll bring the pan over to you. Hopefully the camera won't get any oil splashing up on it. But now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to okay, good. It's not too hot. I'm just going to place the tofu in the pan like this. Across. Okay. So you kind of get the idea. I'll stick it back on here. So you're just going to do that. Just stick the oil or stick the tofu such that it's kind of like in the oil. Oh, it looks like there's not as much oil in the middle. So I'll show you what I'm doing here in just a minute. Okay. So I'm kind of putting the tofu now around the outside where the oil is accumulating. And you can see how some of this tofu is starting to fry up. So I'll finish by putting some pieces right here. I know I'm not doing it today, but a good suggestion would also be to wear an apron and not a white shirt, because if you get any oil splashing up, your white shirt will probably not. It will probably be difficult to get that oil stain out of your white shirt, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Or you could be like me and you just have shirts that you're okay with getting ruined when you cook because you cook with them all the time. It's kind of what an apron would be, but whatever. Okay. I could probably fit one more piece of tofu in here. My hands are a little oily, so let me just. Okay. So this is how my tofu looks now. It's not quite frying at the level I would like it. It looks like it's starting to get there now. It's starting to get, you know, but I really want to hear this frying. I want this to sound like someone's cooking French fries, you know. I want it to get a nice, good fry. Okay, so while that's doing that, and you'll see earlier, like when I flip it over, it should be bronze on the one side. Then we'll fry it on the other side, and we should have a pretty good bronze on either side. So I'll put that lid on there. Okay, back over to our vegetables. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to start adding all of the spices that we had picked out earlier. Okay. I don't know if you can hear that. You can start to hear that frying up. First thing I'm going to do, I'm going to add some of the turmeric. Then I'm going to add some pepper. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add in, you know, kind of an amount that you know I'm used to adding. So you can just add in whatever you feel comfortable with. You know, you could start with a teaspoon or 2 teaspoons or whatever. But then eventually what you're going to do is you're just going to like taste it and see if you like it, and if not, you can add a little bit more of a different spice. Something you can do as well is, you know, smell it, right? So your olfactory senses, your sense of smell and sense of taste are really kind of interrelated and connected. So if you smell something and you like how it smells, you're probably going to like how it tastes. And it's probably going to be a similar sensation when you're tasting it, or a somewhat similar sensation. I'm not saying it's identical or anything, but okay, what do we have next? We're going to go with the cardamom. Love the smell of cardamom. Okay, it's getting hot in this kitchen. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add some chili powder. So I'm a big fan. Once again, for those who don't like spicy, you might want to tread a little more softly than I am. And a little bit of cayenne. I also have a chipotle. Sometimes I'll put chipotle in there. I don't see why not. You know, make this your own recipe. Whatever kind of spice you like that goes along with the kind of peanut butter flavor, throw it in there. Okay. So now I just kind of mixed all the spices in, and I'll show you what it looks like now. I've kind of mixed all the spices in, and it just kind of looks like this. So I'm just going to let that cook a little bit because I want to move over to this. I want to move over to this tofu. So what you can see now is like this is really cooking nicely. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to try flipping one of these. Oh yeah, I have a feeling that's going to be done. Oh, it's stuck a little. That's too bad. Well, maybe not quite yet, but you see how it's starting to get that bronze on there? That's what you want. So I'll let this cook a little bit longer. Try to make sure none of these other ones are sticking. Oh, that one's going to stick. Oh, well. Casualties of war. That one's good. So generally the ones that kind of don't have as much oil around them, they're the ones that stick the most. So you want to just make sure you have a good amount of oil in there. Okay, they're going. Maybe give those another minute or two before I flip them. Okay, let's go back to over here. Now we have our spices added, and what you can do is you can go ahead and, you know, use a clean spoon or something. Or, I mean, let's be honest, it's quarantine and you're not cooking for anyone but yourself. So use whatever utensil you want. Go ahead and give it a, tastes amazing to me. If anything, it needs more chili powder. But okay, so give it a taste, and if something's missing or what have you, go ahead and add a little bit of it. Make it taste like you like. Now the next part, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to add in the coconut milk. Okay, so here's the coconut milk I have. Once again, it's not condensed or anything or in a can. It's just the kind of you would get unrefrigerated on the shelf in a supermarket. You can also use the cans if you want on the shelf in a supermarket. Just make sure, you know, once you use this to refrigerate it. So it's okay to be on a shelf unrefrigerated until it's open. Once you open it, just refrigerate it. What we're going to do with this is some people like kind of really gooey, liquidy curry, and some people like kind of drier, pasty curry. If you like wetter curry, add more. If you like less, if you like kind of a pastier curry, add less. If you accidentally add too much, just let it cook until it boils off. So we're just going to add that straight in. Just add it straight in. I'm probably adding about 3/4 of this container into there. Okay. Once again, if I decide that that's not enough, I can add more later. If I accidentally cook too much of it off, I can add more later. Another thing you will consider doing is after this heats up a little, give it a taste again. Now that you've added the coconut milk and there's more liquid in there, you're going to dilute some of the spices that you added. So now you might not be able to taste the spices that you were tasting earlier. Okay. Let's move over to our tofu real quick, and then we'll come back to that, because it sounds like our tofu is cooking up, and we don't want to burn it. Oh yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That brown that's going on there, that's where it's at. Let me see. Huh. This one might need a little bit longer, but let's just go ahead and flip them and see what happens. Oh yeah. Okay. Apologize if the camera angle is not perfect. I'm trying to flip these with one hand while not burning my hand off from the oil that's flying up, and not ruin the camera. Okay. So yeah, I'll let that cook for maybe another few minutes, and then those will be pretty much ready to go. Okay. So now we're coming back over here. We've added our coconut milk. The next thing to do is to add the peanut aspect. And so for this, just going to get your favorite kind of peanut butter. If you're a fan of, here, let me see if I could, maybe this will work to prop this up a little. Ah, hey, that works better. If you're like me and you're not so much a fan of like the super sweet, particularly when I'm making curry, I don't want to add anything like sweet or sugary in there, other than the red and yellow or orange bell peppers. That's about the sweetest thing I'll add to a curry. So I just got peanut butter that doesn't have any sugar added. So this is literally just ground peanuts in this one. I don't think there's salt added to this one. Oh yeah, there's some salt added to this one. But once again, if you want to do a no salt, that's fine. It's really your flavor preference. I mean, if you want to add Jif, add Jif. Okay. So now I'll show you, basically what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a spoon and I'm just going to like put a spoon of peanut butter in there, or 2 or 3. I really like to taste peanut butter, so I'm going to go 3. I guess this would essentially be a tablespoon. So I'll do 3 tablespoons-ish. Once again, if you're a big fan of peanuts, add more. If you're not, you want to try cashew butter or something like that, you know, let me know how it turns out. I don't see any reason why that wouldn't be amazing as well. I love cashews. I'm not going to hate. Okay, so I'll show you what that looks like real quick. You can just kind of see the peanut butter is like disintegrating in there. So we're just going to mix that in. Just mix the peanut butter in. And you'll see pretty quickly the peanut butter kind of just blends in with the liquid, right? You can kind of see that the liquid is now getting a little bit more thick, and it's starting to look like, hey, let me see if I can turn this light off because it looks a little overexposed. Well, anyway, hey, it's starting to look like a curry that I would order at a restaurant, right? I'll turn that light back on just in case. Okay, now we're gonna go over our tofu, which looks like maybe I'm overcooking it a little today, but that's because I'm not able to pay as much attention to it. I'm sure it'll still be fine. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take those pieces out and I'm gonna put them on a plate with a little paper towel here. Okay, over there. Try to not block you. Oh no, they're okay. I'm just gonna, just like I was, you know, making French fries, or I'm going to sound real bad, but like you're making bacon or something, you know, you want to put it on something to soak up some of that excess grease. Okay, oops, almost lost it. So what I'll do here is, in just a second, I'll cut through one of these and you can kind of get an idea. That one's going to be extra crispy. So it's interesting here, I actually have a spread of crispy and not so crispy pieces, and I'll kind of show you the difference here in just a minute. I'll add these last few pieces. Actually didn't need to add any extra oil this time, which is great. Okay, so I'll bring this over and show you. We kind of have a spread of crispy to not so crispy. And in case you're, you know, that's my smoke alarm. 1 second. Okay. Part of the adventure, you know. Okay, so here we have a crispy. So you kind of see that one. Yeah, this one's maybe overcooked. This is kind of the consistency that I'm going for here with this one. Yeah, it's really good. As a matter of fact, maybe I could even add a little more truffle oil. Now I'll try the crispy one, which kind of has the consistency of a potato chip. That's a lot different, but it's not bad. Okay, but generally, this is kind of what it should look like when it's done. This is what it looks like when you're doing a tutorial and not paying attention. Let me see how this one's coming along. Yep, these are all ready to flip. I apologize if all you can hear is crunching. That piece was really well done. Okay, so now what I've done is these are going to come out way better, so I'm paying more attention to them. You can kind of get a feel for the level of brown. Well, you can kind of. It's really blown out. But what I'll do now is after I flip them, I'm just going to turn that off, and I'm going to let the heat that's left there just finish cooking that. Let's look over at our curry. It has a really nice consistency now, right? So what we can do is take a spoon. I'm thinking that maybe it could use a little bit more garam masala. So I'm going to add some of that. So this is kind of what cooking experience is all about. Add a little bit more garam masala and just a tinge more of the cardamom. just a little bit. Okay. Mix that in, and we'll give it another try. So something to keep in mind is the longer I let this cook, the thicker it's going to get. You can see all this kind of steam coming off. All right, I'm going to go ahead and take that off the fryer. I think that's more than done on those. Okay, now let's give it another taste here. Much better. Some other spices that are kind of go well with this kind of dish is like allspice. So if you're a fan of allspice, some people like nutmeg. Some people do fish oil. If you want to experiment, those are all avenues that I can suggest or recommend. Those are kind of those flavors are going to play well. Where did I put my? There's my spoon. I'm gonna really quickly just transfer the rest of my tofu out over here. Okay. So that's good. I have my burner off. We'll go over here. I think this curry looks ready. So we'll just turn that off. Okay. Now what we'll do is, oh, it looks like someone has done, Elena has done sunflower butter before. So yeah, there you go. If you're a fan of sunflower butter, go for that. Definitely, that sounds delicious actually. So now let's go check on our rice. Looks like it's done. You can see what happened with those cloves. Those cloves, they just come up on the top. And so what you can do is just scoop these cloves out. That you don't have to worry about, oh, I found a clove in my rice and it hurt my tooth or whatever. The cloves are going to stay on the top, so they're really easy to take out or to not mix up with the rice. And so what I'll do in the last few minutes we have is I'll just scoop some rice into a bowl and then scoop some curry on top of that rice, and then kind of show you what the finished product looks like. Let me get a ladle here. Okay. And then I hate to keep you in suspense. Okay. And then what we can do is just put some of our pieces of tofu on the top here. Okay. And, however you want to do it, you could try to make like a neat, whatever. The food presentation can be whatever you want it to be. But anyway, here, let's do something like this. There, that looks kind of neat. There you have it. You have your truffle oil fried tofu. You have your curry that's made with peanut butter and coconut milk and a ton of spices. You have your vegetables that are in the curry, and then your rice as well. So that's kind of what I have for you today. I hope you all had a great time and learned a lot from this. If you have any questions, go ahead and post them now, and I'll get to them. Otherwise, remember that you can follow us at Climate Classes. We're trying to post a new tutorial, whether it's cooking or cleaning or beauty or what have you, every week. So check back to the YouTube channel and the Facebook page often. If you subscribe to us on YouTube, you'll know when an upcoming live video like this is going to be published. You'll also have first access to some of the videos that we publish in other tutorials. With that, once again, if you're interested in getting more involved, even with Citizens Climate Classes, so if you have a favorite recipe that you want to share, we would love to hear from you. And you could potentially even host the video. We would love to have a national and international group of individuals who are hosting these videos and teaching everyone these kind of cool, sustainable recipes. So please get in contact with us through the YouTube channel. Just send us a message, and maybe we can make something like that work. For those of you who are interested in getting more involved at the federal level or at the political level, check out Citizens Climate Lobby and some of the cool kind of actions that they're leading in order to kind of try to figure out a way to mitigate our carbon emissions and make for a healthier planet with less pollution. So thank you all for tuning in, and I look forward to talking to you all next time. Bye.